So today's goal is to learn how to solve equations, quadratic equations by factoring. So I'm going to do a couple here for you, and then you'll have some more to practice in your workbook and on math. So the whole idea is when we solve by factoring, our first step, before we can factor, we always have to make sure that the equation is set equal to 0. Factoring does not help you if the equation is not equal to 0 to begin with, because the whole point of factoring is you are turning things into multiplication. When two things multiply to be 0, you can then separate them out. So once it's equal to 0, your next step, so first step, equal to 0. Second step is to factor. And that's what we did on Friday last week. So that's when we use our box method. And the goal of factoring is to end up with two parentheses with a linear expression in each of them. So for this problem here, we can set up our box just like we did last week. Remember, the first term goes in the upper left, last term goes in the bottom right. And then to fill in the other boxes, we know the numbers need to add to 9. Then the diagonals have to multiply to be the same thing. So 4x squared times 5 gives us 20x squared. So we're looking for numbers that multiply to 20, add to 5. So if we list out all of our factors, there we go. We're looking for the ones that add to 9, which in this case is this 4 and 5. So I'll put a 4x and a 5x in here. Now we look for the GCF of each. So of this first row, we can take an x out. The 4x and the 5 has nothing in common, so it's just a 1. And now going the other way, we can take a 4 and x out of that one. And we can take a 5 out of this one. So the whole point is we now rewrite this to be our two factors. And again, this is all still what we did last week, the factoring piece. Now the new step is, since we have two factors set equal to 0, this is where the zero product property comes into play. What that means is we can separate these out because one of them on their own has to be 0. So either x plus 1 equals 0 or 4x plus 5 equals 0. So we write each of those out, and now we solve them each separately. So subtract 1 from both sides here. We get x equals negative 1. Subtract 5 on this one. 4x equals negative 5. Divide by 4. We get x equals negative 5/4. So when factoring, you will almost always have two answers to the problem. After you get the factors, you separate them, set them equal to 0, and done. So factor, set each factor equal to 0 for step 3, and solve separately. And when we set each factor equal to 0, what that is doing is called, we are using the zero product property. So on Mathia, they'll have you actually write that out so you can get used to just the fact that it's zero product property. Okay, one more example just so you can see it. You have another one to go with in case something in that one threw you. We have this x squared minus 11x plus 9 equals negative 5. So in this case, we can't factor until it's equal to 0. So that means we have to add 5 to both sides. We combine it with the like terms, which here will be the constant. So now we have x squared minus 11x plus 24 equals 0. Now that we've done that, we can factor. So again, the goal for factoring is to get those two parentheses. In order to do that, we have to use our box. So we have an x squared and a 24. Multiply the crisscross, so we are looking at factors of 24x squared. We know they have to add to negative 11. So let's see, we have 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. And then, since they still multiply to be a positive, they'll be the same sign, but it adds to a negative 11 this time, so we know they'll both be negative. And 3 plus 8 gives us that negative 11. So we have a negative 3x and a negative 8x. Now we just pull out our greatest common factor of each. Negative 3 here. X squared and x, we have an x in common. And 8 and 24. Negative 8 in common. So this one factors to be x minus 3 x minus 8. Again, now that we have that equals 0, that's the whole point. We can use our zero product property, separate it out. So we get x minus 3 equals 0 and x minus 8 equals 0. Solve each on their own. Class change time. Okay, add our 3 over. So one answer is x equals 3. Add the 8 over. The other answer is x equals 8. So today you'll be working through activity 5.1 in the book and turning your answers in through the slide assignment on Schoology, and then any extra time you have will be just working on the Mathio, which is solving by factoring. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll be on Zoom, and hopefully I'll see you guys.